My sister mocked my simple lifestyle, cut me out of Christmas, saying, "We only need true family." I walked away, and Grandpa took steps that destroyed her. Have you ever felt like you're the black sheep of your family, constantly overlooked, even ridiculed? What if I told you my own sister, the golden child, publicly humiliated me at Christmas, telling everyone I wasn't real family? That moment, that betrayal, sparked a chain of events that utterly dismantled their perfect, fake lives. And believe me, the comeuppance was glorious. It happened last year, and honestly, it took me this long to even be ready to talk about it. But my family, they truly believed they could treat me like absolute garbage and just get away with it. They were so wrong. This isn't just a story. It's a testament to patience, hard work, and the sweet, sweet taste of karmic justice. Let me tell you about my life, because trust me, you need to understand the full picture to truly appreciate how rewarding this retribution was. I'm 32, living in Denver. I make a pretty decent income, about $180,000 a year. And yeah, that sounds good, right? But you haven't heard about the rest of my family's insane spending habits. This story? It's about years of family strife, public humiliation, and the most spectacular comeback you can imagine. See, growing up, it was clear who the favorite was. My sister, Chloe, always the pageant queen, always dating some famous athlete. While she was doing all that, I was the quiet one, buried in books, saving every dime, obsessed with building a real future. My parents, Thomas and Susan, they made it abundantly clear Chloe was the golden child and I was just taking up space. I'll never forget Chloe's 16th birthday. A brand new BMW, $45,000, with a giant red bow. For a kid who didn't even have a job. The whole neighborhood was there, watching her shriek and jump around like she'd won the lottery. She plastered it all over social media, calling it the happiest day ever, praising our amazing parents. 2 years later, on my 18th, I got an old Honda Civic. 185,000 miles. My dad bought it from a coworker for $1,800. His exact words? "It builds character." And Chloe? She was just standing there, smirking, probably already plotting her next extravagant demand. Even after graduating summa cum laude from college, I ended up with $45,000 in student loans. I refused to ask my parents for help because I'd seen how they handled money requests. It was always about who they preferred to give to. So I worked my butt off. 2 part-time jobs while studying finance, grocery store from 6 p.m. to midnight, restaurant on weekends. Then, right after my graduation, Chloe hit what she probably considered the ultimate jackpot. My parents just enabled her. Funding her lavish lifestyle was being good parents, but my financial independence? That was a character flaw. Chloe married Jason, a commercial real estate developer. Supposedly, he pulls in over $420,000 a year. Now she lives in this colossal 9-bedroom mansion in the most exclusive suburb you can imagine. She drives a Tesla Model S, and her Instagram is just a never-ending reel of Cabo, Dubai, the Maldives. It's this meticulously curated, utterly cringeworthy display of wealth that, honestly, just made me embarrassed for her. While she was doing that, I was grinding. 70-hour weeks, ramen for dinner, chipping away at my debt like any responsible adult. Don't get me wrong, I did well for myself. Through sheer hard work and smart decisions, I've got about $160,000 saved. My student loans are long gone. I max out my 401k and IRA every single year. I drive a reliable Toyota Camry, live in a nice but modest 2-bedroom apartment. And I'm dating Olivia, a nurse practitioner who earns about $95,000. She's grounded, she saves, she invests wisely. She's everything Chloe isn't. And Chloe? She never missed an opportunity to land a passive-aggressive jab at my choices. Ethan, she'd coo, in that sickeningly sweet, fake concerned voice. When are you going to get a real job? One that actually lets you enjoy life instead of just surviving. Or maybe if you spent less time obsessing over spreadsheets and more time networking with successful people, you'd understand how the world really works. She'd deliver these lines while practically shoving her new designer purchase, a Louis Vuitton handbag that probably cost more than my rent, right in my face. The worst part, though? Watching my parents, Thomas and Susan, nod along like her condescending garbage was actually sound, helpful advice. But this is where the story gets really good, and why the retribution was so incredibly satisfying. See, our grandpa, Jack, he built an absolute empire. From nothing. I mean, he started with just a pickup truck, a toolbox, and a relentless willingness to work 16-hour days, rain or shine. Decades of sheer grit, smart investments, and treating people right, and he became the owner of one of Colorado's biggest construction companies. He's worth somewhere between $8 and $10 million. And he's always preached about hard work, saving money, earning your place through merit, not handouts. Guess which family member actually listened? Just me. The rest of them? They saw Grandpa as their personal ATM. They lived these obscenely inflated lifestyles, completely funded by his generosity, and then had the sheer audacity to look down on me for being unsuccessful and unmotivated. Every single year, Grandpa organizes this elaborate Christmas trip. It's his way of keeping the family together, trying to maintain those family bonds. He pays for everything because to him, family unity is priceless. Last year's trip was to this ridiculously fancy ski resort in Colorado. I was actually looking forward to it. Work had been absolutely brutal, and I desperately needed a break from the constant stress. Grandpa had booked everything months in advance, saying he wanted this trip to be extra special. I didn't understand why at the time, but I would soon find out. This place was insane. A luxury ski resort in Vail. We're talking $1,200 a night for a basic room, $250 dinners, $350 spa treatments, lift tickets costing more than most people's weekly grocery bill. I drove up from Denver after wrapping up a huge project that Friday, got to the resort around 8 p.m. And the place was just ostentatious. Exposed wood beams that probably cost more than my car. Natural stonework that belonged in a museum. Fireplaces so huge you could probably fit a person inside. People strutting around in $5,000 ski outfits, casually discussing helicopter skiing and private mountain tours. I felt a little underdressed in my trusty Columbia jacket and basic snow pants, but I really didn't care. I was there for family, not a fashion show. I walked up to the front desk, my duffel bag slung over my shoulder, gave the clerk my name. She started typing, then frowning. Typing harder. More frowns. Irritated sighs. She called her supervisor over, who did the exact same thing. I'm so sorry, sir, but I don't see any reservation under your name. My heart sank a little. Let me try other spellings or a family member's name, she offered. And that's when I heard it. Chloe's voice. Behind me. And, immediately, I knew something was wrong. There was this theatrical, performative cheeriness to it, the kind I remembered from childhood, right before she was about to cause trouble. Oh my gosh, Ethan, you actually made it, she chirped. I wasn't sure you'd be able to take time off from your small work. She was putting on a show, I swear, for an imaginary audience. I turned around. There she was. Designer ski outfit, probably cost more than my entire wardrobe for the year. Custom-fitted jacket, metallic threaded pants, boots that belonged on a runway, not a mountain. And that smirk. That exact smirk she used to wear just before she'd rat me out to mom and dad for something I supposedly did. The front desk staff were still frantically searching, and other guests were starting to gather behind me, clearly annoyed by the holdup. The tension in that plush, expensive lobby was palpable. Chloe leaned in, just loud enough for everyone to hear. Oh, how strange there's no room for you, Ethan. I'm not sure how that happened. Then she lowered her voice into this stage whisper she thought was discreet. Actually, Ethan, I had a long talk with Grandpa about our sleeping arrangements. We decided we only needed rooms for true family members this year. She raised her voice again, making sure everyone within earshot could hear. You know, people who actually contribute something valuable to family gatherings, instead of just showing up expecting freebies. My stomach just dropped. The sheer implication hit me like a physical blow. What are you talking about, Chloe? Grandpa invited everyone. She just smiled. Well, Jason and I have the presidential family suite, of course. Mom and Dad have that magnificent corner room with a mountain view. She paused, savoring the moment. I guess there just wasn't enough space for everyone who wanted to come. You know how pricey these places are, right? The entire lobby had gone silent. You could hear the fireplace crackling. I looked around. My parents were sitting on those big leather chairs by the hearth. I met their eyes, and they both immediately turned away. Like cowards. Jason was standing near the concierge desk, scrolling through his phone, completely disengaged. Their 8-year-old twin boys were oblivious, running around. Chloe continued her planned performance. Let's be realistic, Ethan. You couldn't possibly afford a place like this on your small analyst income. Maybe there's a Holiday Inn or a Super 8 down the mountain somewhere. She actually giggled. The idea of me in a budget motel was just hilarious to her. Other guests were openly staring. The front desk clerk looked mortified, probably debating calling security. Her supervisor was pretending to review papers, but I knew she was hanging on every word. Chloe, what in God's name is going on? I demanded. Grandpa personally invited and approved my attendance. She just waved a dismissive hand. Oh, sweetie. Grandpa totally understood when I explained the whole situation to him. We need to focus on the people who are genuinely important to our family's future prosperity. She gestured dramatically towards Jason, who still hadn't looked up from his phone. I mean, Jason's firm just won a $17 million commercial development contract last month. That's real success. That's the kind of accomplishment we should be celebrating and supporting as a family. And that's when it hit me. Like a ton of bricks. This wasn't some accident. This wasn't a computer glitch. Chloe had meticulously, purposefully planned this entire scenario. She wanted to humiliate me, in front of strangers, just to prove some sick point about her perceived superiority. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, maybe 20 seconds, just letting it sink in. Chloe watched my face, her satisfaction almost radiating off her. She probably expected me to beg, to make a scene, to embarrass myself even more. My parents were still staring at the floor, those gutless cowards. But instead of anger or hurt, what Chloe clearly wanted, I felt this bizarre, crystal-clear calm wash over me. All those scattered pieces of a puzzle, years of resentment, of being overlooked, suddenly clicked into place. I saw the entire, ugly picture. You know what, Chloe? I said, my voice surprisingly steady. You're absolutely right about everything. Her confident smile flickered. Confusion clouded her face. I'm sorry? What did you say? You're absolutely right. I repeated slowly. I should leave this place. Immediately. I pulled out my phone, opened a ride-sharing app, doing it with deliberate, almost theatrical calm. I wish you and the actual family an absolutely lovely Christmas together. She looked genuinely bewildered. This was not the reaction she'd planned for. Wait, that's it, she stammered. You're just giving up? Without even trying to resolve this. I looked her dead in the eye. Nope. I'm making a conscious decision, based on fresh information. I paused. Have fun explaining to Grandpa tomorrow morning why I won't be at Christmas breakfast. And when I tell him how utterly improper and theatrical you've been acting. Oh, he'll totally understand. I turned to walk away, then paused, looked back at her one last time, and gave her the widest, most sincere smile I'd had in months. I am very certain he will, Chloe. I am convinced he will grasp everything correctly. That ride down the mountain? It gave me time. Time to think, clearly for the first time in years. And time to plan. Chloe had made one colossal mistake, one that was about to unravel her entire carefully constructed, fake life. She thought I was still that same powerless little brother she used to torment as a kid. She had no idea who I'd become. She had no idea what I knew, or what I had access to. Let me tell you what Chloe didn't know, and why her little stunt was about to backfire in the most spectacular way possible. First, for the past 6 years, I'd been quietly assisting Grandpa with all his business finances. Second, I was the one who convinced him to modernize everything, to switch from dusty paper records to secure digital systems. He'd call me with questions about investments, tax strategies, retirement planning, complex financial analysis. I knew more about his money concerns and future plans than anyone else in the family combined. I set up his online banking, organized his investment accounts, digitized decades of records. I had legitimate, comprehensive access to financial information that would make Chloe's head spin if she ever knew what I could see. Third, and this is crucial to what happened next, Grandpa had been growing seriously concerned about the family's spending habits. Their rampant sense of entitlement. He'd made countless pointed comments over the years about people living beyond their means, expecting handouts instead of earning their way. He worried deeply about what would happen to his hard-earned money after he was gone, about whether anyone truly understood its value. So, from the airport, while waiting for my flight back to Denver, I called him. "Ethan, what's wrong? Shouldn't you be at the resort?" I told him everything. No drama. No emotional manipulation. No exaggeration. Just the cold, hard facts. How Chloe had deliberately excluded me. Her specific comments about real family. The public humiliation right there in the lobby. And my parents' spineless refusal to defend their own son. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for what felt like an eternity, about 45 seconds. When Grandpa finally spoke, his voice had utterly transformed. From warm and worried to ice-cold and utterly resolute. "Well," he said, his words cutting through the phone line, "I believe it's time for certain members of this family to learn about the actual repercussions of their behavior." I try to play it down. "Grandpa, you don't need to do anything dramatic. I'm okay, really. I'll just spend Christmas at home." But he wasn't listening. "Ethan, can you come to my office first thing Monday morning? I have some extremely serious business concerns to address with you. Bring your laptop. And any financial analyzing software you own." Monday morning, there I was in Grandpa's office. It's like a museum of American business success. Dark wood paneling, leather chairs that look like they've been there since the 60s, dozens of awards, photos from 40 years in construction. And it was there, sitting across from him, that the full weight of Chloe's mistake truly hit me. Grandpa looked tired, but absolutely resolute. "Ethan," he said, his voice firm, "I want to know exactly how much money I've given your parents and your sister over the years. Every single gift. Every loan. Every emergency payment. Can you compile this into a detailed analysis for me?" This was it. This was what my financial analysis skills were really for. The next week was a blur. I pored over bank records, transfer logs, tax documents, canceled checks, digital payments. Grandpa gave me full, unrestricted access to everything, his personal accounts, business accounts, financial records going back 20 years. And what I uncovered, it was absolutely mind-blowing. Worse than I could have ever imagined. Here's just a glimpse of what I found over the last decade. Chloe got $49,000 for her wedding, which she claimed was barely enough for basics. The receipts told a different story. $78,000 total. She got $32,000 as a down payment for their house, then another $28,000 2 years later for a kitchen upgrade, granite counters, professional appliances. And for the past 5 years, she'd been receiving $4,000 a month for children's expenses and cost of living adjustments. That's over $250,000 in direct monthly payments alone. And there was more. Emergency loans that were conveniently forgotten. $43,000 for a business opportunity that just vanished. My parents were no different. They'd been working the same system for years. $37,000 on various schemes. More than most people's annual car payments just on birthday and Christmas gifts. Probably another $60,000 over the years for vacations, jewelry, furniture. Grandpa paid off their $95,000 mortgage when they struggled with retirement planning. And for the past 6 years, he'd been supplementing their retirement income with $3,500 a month because their savings were insufficient for the lifestyle they deserved. That's over $220,000 for home renovations, medical bills, car payments, insurance, unexpected expenses. In total, over the last decade, These people had received well over $700,000 in direct handouts. And that doesn't even count the smaller gifts, dinners, vacations, all the other perks that were harder to quantify.
Me?
I'd asked Grandpa for help exactly once in my entire adult life. A $6,000 loan when I was between jobs for 3 months after college. I paid it back with interest in 4 months. Never asked for another dime. But then I dug deeper. This is where the investigation got really interesting and where the facade of their successful lifestyle completely crumbled. I decided to use my job resources, public records databases, to look into Chloe and Jason's actual financial situation. I know how to read financial documents, court filings, business records in ways most people don't. And what I found was absolutely, staggeringly shocking. Their 9-bedroom mansion? Mortgaged to the absolute limit. They owed $750,000 on a property that, today, is worth barely $680,000. It was underwater. And those luxury cars? Both leased. Just monthly payments for vehicles they would never, ever own. Chloe's credit card debt was beyond insane. I found at least 14 different accounts with significant balances, totaling over $100,000. And Jason's company? The one Chloe bragged about having a $17 million deal and $420,000 annual income? Public business filings showed it had been struggling for 2 years. 3 major development projects fell through due to financing. His biggest commercial client terminated their contract last September, citing delays, massive cost overruns, quality issues. His business had defaulted on 2 significant construction loans. It was essentially operating on borrowed time, credit extensions. Their entire, extravagant life was a complete fraud, funded by massive debt. And Grandpa's monthly payments. When I presented Grandpa with a detailed, meticulously compiled report, he just sat there, silently, for a full 15 minutes. He slowly flipped through every page, every document, and I watched as his face, usually so kind, hardened with increasing rage. I'd added a note. Without that $4,000 per month from you, Grandpa, they'd be declaring bankruptcy within 60 days. Finally, he looked up at me. His expression was unique. A chilling blend of fury and quiet satisfaction. Very intriguing, he murmured, his voice low. Very fascinating, indeed. I think it's time for some people to learn what real consequences feel like. 3 weeks after the ski resort disaster, Grandpa called a mandatory family meeting at his house. The official reason? Important financial planning and estate planning issues. And the kicker? Attendance absolutely required for anyone who wants to be included in my will. You know, I arrived early. I was there to help him prepare what would become, without a doubt, the most satisfying presentation of my entire life. Grandpa had printed everything. Bank statements, transfer records, loan documents, property records, business filings, credit reports. All meticulously organized in individual folders, each with a family member's name written neatly on the front in his familiar handwriting. Chloe, naturally, arrived 25 minutes late. Pulled up in her Tesla Model S, wearing another ridiculously expensive outfit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. She looked annoyed, inconvenienced, as if this meeting was cutting into her very important schedule of spending other people's money and posing for Instagram. Jason? He looked uneasy the moment he walked in. I think he was starting to realize their house of cards was crumbling. My parents arrived acting like nothing had happened at Christmas. No apology, no acknowledgement, no explanation for their gutless behavior. Just business as usual. They probably thought this meeting was about getting a raise on their monthly allowance, or discussing their inheritance. Grandpa started the meeting very formally. I've asked everyone here today because I've been conducting a full evaluation of my financial support for this family over the last 15 years. Ethan assisted me in gathering some truly eye-opening material. And I believe it's time we have a truly honest debate about money, entitlement, and family values. He handed out the folders with almost theatrical precision. I watched Chloe's face as she opened hers. As she began reading the cold, hard numbers, laid out in black and white, the color literally drained from her cheeks. She finally understood the scope of what she was looking at. Grandpa continued, his voice calm but firm. I want each of you to carefully analyze those statistics. Then, explain to me why you feel you're entitled to this amount of continued financial support. Chloe, predictably, went straight into full victim mode. Grandpa, she whined, raising children is so expensive these days. Jason and I work so hard to provide for our family, and with the economy being so unstable and unpredictable. Chloe. Grandpa's voice cut through her whimpering like a scalpel. According to these papers, your husband allegedly makes $420,000 every year. Please explain in detail why you require an additional $45,000 from me each year just to maintain your lifestyle. She stammered. Well, the house payment is really high because we wanted the boys to grow up in a good neighborhood, and they have activities and sports, and we have other necessary expenses that you just wouldn't understand. Grandpa just stared at her. You decided to buy a house you couldn't afford. You decided to lease fancy automobiles instead of purchasing dependable transportation. You chose to enroll your children in pricey private programs instead of perfectly good public ones. These were your purposeful decisions, made with the expectation that I would continue to finance your lifestyle choices eternally. My parents, sensing the tide turning, tried to intervene, to deflect the blame. Dad, my mother started, you know how much we appreciate all you've done for us, but retirement planning is just so hard with inflation and medical bills. Grandpa cut them off, too. You retired at 62, knowing I would augment your income eternally. You made no real attempt to save enough for your own retirement because you simply expected me to manage all your financial responsibilities. You regarded my generosity as an entitlement, not a gift. The tension in that room was so thick you could almost taste it. Chloe, her face pale, finally started to get scared. Grandpa, what are you trying to say here? Are you threatening us? Grandpa looked at each of them, slowly. I'm saying that, effective immediately, all financial support to this family is being permanently terminated. The eruption was instantaneous. Exactly what I expected. And honestly, really enjoyable to witness. Chloe immediately launched into her fake weeping, those dramatic crocodile tears and theatrical wailing. My parents started babbling, feverishly talking over each other about their limited income, medical expenditures, retirement security. Jason just sat there, looking like he wanted to melt into the floorboards. But Grandpa wasn't finished delivering his verdict. Furthermore, he continued, his voice heavy with disappointment, I am profoundly disappointed and frankly, personally insulted by how Ethan was treated during our Christmas trip. The purposeful exclusion. The public humiliation. It was utterly wrong. And it showed me precisely who you've become when you think no one is watching. Chloe's phony tears instantly morphed into genuine, spitting rage. This is about him, she shrieked. You're really doing this because of him? He's a grown man. He should be able to care for himself without relying on Grandpa like a little baby. Yes, Chloe, Grandpa shot back, his voice unwavering. He should be able to care for himself. And he does. He has never asked me for continued assistance. He paid off his college loans through his own relentless efforts. He lives within his means. He treats family members with decency and respect. You might want to consider learning from his example instead of constantly ridiculing it. Chloe scoffed, her face contorted. Oh, please. He's a dull loser who spends his days staring at spreadsheets and has no social life. Jason earns 3 times his salary. We're the prosperous members of this family. We're the ones who matter. And that's when Grandpa pulled out one more folder. A small, almost imperceptible smile played on his lips. Actually, Chloe, he said, speaking of Jason's tremendous success. He looked directly at Jason. Jason, who had gone completely pale, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. Ethan, Grandpa instructed, could you please explain what your financial study indicated concerning the commercial real estate industry? This is probably the moment a decent human being should have felt bad for them. But I didn't. Not even a little. They had this coming. For years. I opened my laptop. Pulled up the extensive financial study I'd prepared just for this moment. Well, I began, based on public records, business filings, and financial documents, Jason's company is essentially bankrupt. It's been operating on borrowed time for months. Jason's face went from pale to a sickly green. His fictitious empire was collapsing right in front of him. In front of everyone. "Ethan," he choked out, "you had absolutely no right to investigate my private business affairs." I looked at him calmly. "Actually, I had every right. This is all publicly available information from state corporate registrations and court filings. Your firm has defaulted on 4 large construction loans, totaling over $2.5 million, just in the last 2 years. Your largest commercial client terminated their contract in September, citing delays, massive cost overruns, and quality difficulties. And you haven't closed a development project for more than $65,000 since last summer." Chloe was staring, her head swiveling between me and Jason, like she couldn't compute what she was hearing. Her meticulously fabricated social media world was shattering right before her eyes. I continued, with deliberate, almost surgical precision. "And your personal finances? They're even worse than your corporate situation. Your house is about $85,000 underwater on its mortgage. You owe over $100,000 in credit card debt across 14 separate accounts. Your car lease payments alone are $2,400 a month. That's more than most families pay for housing." The quiet in the room was deafening. You could hear the old grandfather clock ticking in the corner. Grandpa, a glint of satisfaction in his eye, chimed in. "Ethan, what did your investigation indicate regarding Chloe's personal spending habits?" I pulled up another slide. According to credit card bills, bank records, and a careful analysis of her social media activity, Chloe spends approximately $5,200 every single month on clothes, accessories, beauty treatments, spa visits, and entertainment. That's more than double what the average American family spends on housing. And that doesn't even include the money for vacations and luxury experiences. That's when Chloe finally snapped. "You're an absolute psychopath," she shrieked. "Who gives you the right to look into my personal life like some creepy stalker? This is insane." I held her gaze. "You did, Chloe. You gave me that right. When you chose to disgrace me in public. When you barred me from family gatherings. When you made it abundantly clear that you thought I was inferior to your successful spouse. When you treated me like absolute garbage in front of complete strangers. Actions have consequences, Chloe. And you're about to find out exactly what those consequences look like." Grandpa slowly rose, with the quiet dignity of a man who had forged an empire with his bare hands. "I believe we've covered all we need to discuss today," he said, his voice resonating through the tense silence. "You all have some extremely important decisions to make regarding your future." He paused, then looked at me. "Ethan, would you mind staying behind for a few minutes? I have something crucial to discuss with you in private." My parents and Chloe's family practically stampeded out of the house in a chaotic commotion. Chloe was still yelling, something about how unjust everything was, how I had wrecked the family with my erratic behavior. Jason looked like he was going to be sick. My parents were utterly devastated. After the door slammed shut behind them, Grandpa sat back down. He looked at me, and for the first time in weeks, a warm, genuine smile spread across his face. "Ethan," he said, his voice soft now, "I've been thinking a lot about updating my will and estate planning lately. And my attorney believes it's definitely time to make some very significant changes to reflect my current understanding of family values and responsibility." 9 months. 9 months have passed since that family meeting. And the results? They've been absolutely spectacular. Beyond my wildest dreams. In April, Jason's company filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Total collapse. They lost their 9-bedroom house to foreclosure and had to move into a tiny 2-bedroom rental apartment in a far less desirable part of town. Both of those luxury cars were repossessed within 8 weeks because, guess what? They couldn't make the lease payments. And Chloe? She had to get her first real job in over a decade. She's working at a department store, making $17 an hour, and she hates every single minute of it. Her social media? Completely dark. Can't afford to fake that lifestyle anymore. The twins had to leave their expensive private school and go to public school, which Chloe constantly whined about, until she realized no one actually cared about her problems anymore. My parents? They had to sell their house and downsize to a cramped one-bedroom condo in a retirement community they could actually afford. And my father? He came out of retirement to work part-time as a cashier at a hardware store. My mom is working the register at a grocery store. They're both utterly miserable, constantly stressed about money, for the first time in decades. But here's the absolute best part, the thing that makes this entire story perfect. They all started calling me, begging. First, my parents, about 3 months after the meeting. "Ethan, dear," my mom whimpered. "We're so sorry about Christmas. We should have protected you from Chloe. We understand now how wrong we were to treat you like that. Could you please just talk to Grandpa for us? We're really struggling with these bills. We don't know what to do." I told them I'd consider assisting them if they sent me a thorough, handwritten letter. One that fully recognized how they had treated me over the years and accepted complete responsibility for their actions and decisions. Jason called me about 2 months ago. "Look, man," he tried, "I know we started on the wrong foot, and Chloe deeply regrets how she handled the Christmas thing. She feels awful about everything. Is there anything you could do to help us? Maybe a small loan to get us back on our feet? I swear, I'll pay you back with interest as soon as business picks up again." I just laughed, out loud, and hung up on him immediately. But the most satisfying call? That came from Chloe herself, about 6 weeks ago. I actually taped it because I knew it was coming. "Please, Ethan," she sobbed, "I know I made a serious mistake. I was utterly wrong about everything. I was terrible to you, and I sincerely apologize. But I'm in such a bad situation here. The boys keep asking why we had to move, why Mommy has to work now, why we can't go on vacation, and why their friends can't come to our apartment. I will do anything. I will openly apologize on social media. I will admit I was wrong about everything. I'll tell everyone you were right. Just help us go back to normal." I waited a beat. "Chloe," I said, "I have only one question for you, and I want you to think very carefully before you answer." "Anything," she blurted out. "Ask me whatever you want." "When you excluded me from that hotel reservation," I continued, my voice steady, "and told everyone it was only for the true family, did you consider how that would make me feel? As your brother?" There was silence. Almost 30 full seconds of it. "Did you think that I was your brother? And that I deserved basic respect and decency, regardless of how much money I earned?" "Ethan, I was just trying to—" I cut her off. "No, Chloe. You humiliated me because you considered me weak and pitiful. You assumed I needed you more than you needed me. You believed I was always available as a backup plan. And you were completely wrong on every single count. Please, Ethan, I'm literally begging you here. I'll go down on my knees if you want." I took a deep breath. "Do you know what, Chloe?" I said, a slow smile spreading across my face. "You're absolutely right. You are begging me. And do you know how that makes me feel? I let that hang in the air. It makes me believe that maybe, just maybe, there is some true justice in the world after all." So, that's my story. A long journey for sure. I've heard a lot of opinions on what I did and what Grandpa did. But I'm curious, what do you think? What would you have done in my place? Let me know in the comments below.